Our first guest tonight is none other than Mitch Axelrod. Those of you who have been following me for a while know that Mitch and I are good friends. We've been friends for, gosh, at least a decade now. He's also from New York, and he has more of a New York accent than I do. I don't know why I lost mine, but I guess growing up in Canada would do that for you. And he is one who's been on many, many stages over the years as a professional speaker. He's spoken on stages with big guys like Jack Canfield, Jay Abraham, to name a few, T. Harv Eker. Some of these names that he's been on those stages. And the reason why he gets to be on those stages isn't because he's like, wow, he's so special. He's brilliant is why he gets on those stages. He brings such a message to the table. And what he does, he cuts through the crud, right? All the nonsense out there in the marketing and sales community. He knows how to cut through it. And he's always looking at, and I really learned this from him, he's looking for that small hinge that swings the big door. Right, and you think about the heaviest doors that are out there. Well, they're mounted on these little hinges, and if you could find those little hinges, you can impact companies in a huge way. So he's always looking for that. He's looking at sales procedures. He's looking at how the marketing works. He's able to see things that other people simply can't see. No matter what, how close you are to your business, you think you've got it all figured out, but the truth is you're involved in the emotion of the day-to-day. No matter how big or how small the business is, he comes in not attached emotionally at all, and just looks at it from that perspective. And like I said, he can see things that nobody else is able to see, and he's able to make those small little tweaks, those little corrections that bring in, and I'm going to tell you, millions of dollars is not an exaggeration. And you'll hear from Mitch in a moment here, and he can tell you some of the stories and some of the things he's done. It's absolutely phenomenal. And he's always looking for, if you invest in a product, if you invest in your marketing, how quickly can you get that money back that you've invested and then turn a profit on it? And that's really a different way of thinking. A lot of people say, well, it's a return on the investment when it'll be. He says the return of the investment, how quickly can you get that money back so that everything else beyond that is profit. So Mitch Axelrod, welcome to tonight's program.
Hey, Robert. Hey, Sophia. Great to be with
Good
you.
to see you.
My dad was a New York City cop, and he used to say, everything you just said about me, that and 250 will get you on the subway. Like he wasn't impressed. He always used to say, don't tell me what you're going to do. Tell me after you've done it. And it used to bug the heck out of me. And I used to say, God, I want to tell you what I'm going to do. And he said, tell me after you've done it.
Yeah.
But it was a valuable lesson. And until I was in my 30s, I really didn't get it. I thought he just didn't want to hear it, but it was a really powerful lesson. Easy to talk about what you're going to do, but much more powerful to talk about what you've already done. So
It
that
really
was
keeps
one.
you accountable.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Oh, he was very much, as a cop, he was very much into accountability and responsibility. I think back in 1999, I outlined a book, and it was called Success Abilities 21 Life Skills for the 21st Century. And at the top of the list is responsibility. And when you break that word into two words, responsibility, you begin to realize that you can't control things that come from the outside, and you can only control your response. And so, to me, all of life is in one formula. You could break up marketing, sales, business, personal growth, everything, how you deal with what I call the decision gap between stimulus and response. So, something happens to you, you have no control over. You either respond or you react, typically. And when you react, you're typically reacting from some bad past experience. And so I found that early on, that if you could control that gap between stimulus and response, you can control your life. And really, you can be adaptable, another accessibility. You can have bounce back ability. They say it's not how far you fall that counts, it's how high you bounce. And so these are the little hinges that I learned along the way that helped open the big doors. And everything you said about business is true, but it equally applies to us as individual human beings. And as much as I help businesses, and I do, and I've had the good fortune to help create about 3 billion of wealth for the businesses and the individuals I've worked with, um, much more personal satisfaction and fulfillment is when you're working with somebody and you see that light go on, you know. And I think when it comes to mentoring, as Sophia said, everybody has something to teach and everybody has something to learn. And to be a good mentor, you have to be a good mentee. To be a good student, you have to be good. To be a good teacher, you have to be a good student. And in order to do that, my opinion, you have to come to almost everything with a beginner's mind. Like, you can't come into a situation, say, I've been there before, I've seen that before, because that biases you toward what you might learn. And there might be a small distinction that comes out of a situation that seems very familiar to you. You dismiss it, and maybe you overlook that little hinge that you were looking for because you were looking for ways to push open the big doors. And so I tell people when I work with them, the first thing is that your upside is inside. It's not outside. And I think in our world, I observe uh, the last 10, 15 years, we're all looking for the whiz bang magic bullet. Something outside of us is going to come along and be the magic formula. Not realizing that, whatever comes from the outside, it's only going to be as good as your receptivity and readiness to embrace it. And so I work on the whole human being, the mind, the body, and the spirit, or as I like to say, the soul, the role, and the goal. So that's a big part of what I do. And we can talk more about some of the specifics and take this anywhere you'd like to go.
Well, there's a lot of places we can take this, Mitch. You bring such a wealth of information. Why don't you give us a little hint when somebody's in business, some of the things that they miss that you see people missing on a regular basis? Because especially in the coaching industry, a lot of coaches, mentors are not necessarily business people. And like many conversations I've had with you, you say, hey, what about this or what about that? And you just sort
Mm-hmm.
of bring things to the table that just makes so much sense.
First thing is, I coined a phrase about 30 years ago when everybody was going outside the box. I said, if you're going outside the box, you're really still tethered to the box. You're just inside a bigger box. So, what I do is throw the box away. No boxes, no borders, no boundaries. It's a way of thinking, all right? When I was a kid, I was really good at putting puzzles together, like really young, 3, 4, 5 years old, right? And I would put the puzzle together. My father was a cop. He didn't have much money. I was the youngest of 8 kids, yours, mine, and ours. So I was like, hey, this puzzle thing is getting too expensive. So we put a baseball glove and a ball and my bat in my hand, and I played baseball for the next 45 years, right? But I bring that same uh, kind of vision, not so much vision like X-ray vision, but I don't see borders or boundaries. I throw the box away. I come to everything with a beginner's mind. So it's like, tell me like I'm a 5-year-old. And I really believe in simplicity over complexity. So I look to reduce things to their simple uh, elements. The first 5 words in my best-selling book, The New Game of Selling, are not mine. They're Leonardo da Vinci's. Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. And in a world that's gone ultra complex, I mean, when we did our day-long event, I sat next to Robert, you all day, and I sat there, and in my mind, I'm thinking, how is this guy doing this? Like, you were controlling the whole thing, managing I was like, I was in awe, right? But that's your zone of greatness, of brilliance. I could never do that. We all have our zone of brilliance and greatness. And my work is not to put something into you unless you need it. That's like training an animal. And we all need training. But my thing is releasing, okay? Because we have layers and layers of stuff built upon built upon built. Back in, I think it was like 1995, somebody once asked me, what do you do for a living? You know, and I'm a New Yorker. I'm a wise guy. I give them, you know, I like to kibitz around, as they say. So I said, I'm kind of like Michelangelo. And he said, what? What are you talking about? I said, what I do is I help you chip away the marble to find the David inside. So where do we have to start chipping? All right. Because for many of us, and I've trained 1 million people live in person or on, you know, virtual networks and whatnot. And I could tell you that, myself included, it's a lifelong journey to chip away that marble to find that person inside. And, you know, you're born you. And as Emerson once said, the ability to be yourself in a world that's constantly trying to change you into something else is the greatest achievement of all. And that's a powerful quote, isn't it?
It's such a powerful quote. Robert, I don't know if you had a next question. I just have a question I'd like to, just came up in my mind.
Sure.
Okay. What is it that led you to doing what you are doing, or to becoming a coach, mentor, author? What was your path that led you to that? I find that so absolutely fascinating. Everybody has their own story and their own path. And I've come to understand that there is no one path. And we could even listen to the Dalai Lama. That wouldn't be our path either, but we can pick up wisdom and we can pick up advice and inspiration and motivation. But I'm always fascinated about stories, because that's what they do. Stories give us an opportunity to understand the way of thinking that you were able to take on. For you to be able to help so many people, over 1 million people, is amazing. How did you become who you are today?
I think I was always who I am today, but at different iterations at time in my life. So the short answer for time, 5,000 cold calls.
Wow.
In 1978, when I got out of college, I made 5,000 cold calls. I was selling something in the garment center of Manhattan, walking up and down the skyscrapers in the heat of summer, selling something nobody wanted to buy, facsimile machines. And here's the thing, you couldn't sell one. Who are you going to fax to? You had to sell two. And back then, everything was done with teletype, even long distance, overseas. Everything was, people were laughing me out of the office. Plus, get this, if I handed them my business card, you know what it said? Exxon Information Systems. I worked for Exxon Information. Talk about an oxymoron. Talk about a company that spent $100 million going into the information game, and then we're belly up 3 years later, because you can't put a card that says Exxon and then say information. I would put my card and say, we don't need oil and gas. What are you doing here? All right. After 5,000 cold calls and 0 sales, I said, I ain't doing this no more. I'm going to do what I really love to do. I got into financial planning, 10 years. I became a CFP in 1983. Went through a couple of very ups and downs. I was a millionaire at 32. I was dead broke and bankrupt at 34 after losing everything practically in a restaurant investment. And my wife was 8 months pregnant. And she said, you know, I coined a phrase, psychologically unemployable. I can't work for anybody. What are you going to do? And so I reached out to a man named Brian Tracy, and I basically said, look, I don't have the money to pay you what you need. I'll give you all the money I got and pay you off. And I got into this. I said, I'm going to do what I love to do and what I know how to do. and that is speak and train and teach. But I'm not going to do it in a school. I'm going to do it for business people. And that's what I've been doing the last 30 years. I started writing training programs and books, and I've got a very extensive library. And basically, I combined what I love to do, what I'm good at, and what I can make money with. And those are three categories I suggest to people. Is like, you got to look at what you love to do, what you're good at, and what you can earn money. And then make your lists, and then rank them from 1 to 10, 1 to 5, and then see what combination could work for you right now. So you may not be able to do number 1 on what you love. Maybe it's number 2 or 3, and you need to make money now, so you can do the number 1 on that list and what you're good at, so you get some combination. I happen to, I wouldn't say luck into, but fall into number one on every list. What I love to do, teach and release the potential of people for them to see the David inside them, to actualize. Then, secondly, to perform, to maximize your on-the-field performance, so to speak, whatever your field of play is. And then third is optimize your profit, whether you're self-employed. One company I helped generate $47 to $80 million in 1 quarter. 1 quarter. The company wound up selling for $153 million, much of it because of my training. So I often work with people, and I mentioned soul, role, and goal, and that's become a really big part of my work, is to integrate, not just do your goal setting, but I say do your soul setting and your role setting, and then do your goal setting, because there is an epidemic of goal frustration and role frustration and soul frustration, leads to anxiety, stress, and worry. It depletes our energy. It affects our health and well-being. So it's not enough just to work on your mind. You do have to work on your body and your spirit. So to me, the soul is your spirit. It's infinite. Your role is what you do. It's your body. It's your activities. It's all the different things you do. And then your goal is where you're going. So the better you integrate the three, the happier you are, the more satisfied you are, and really, chances are good you'll achieve more of your goals if they're congruent and aligned with your soul and your role, than if your goal is taking you someplace you don't want to be in terms of the things that you do. So I don't believe that, like, hey, the successful people do what unsuccessful people don't do. I used to get into a fight with Brian Tracy about this because I never agreed with it. I said, is it really success if you have all the goals, but you're miserable, or you're unhappy, or you're not really being who you are, true to yourself? No. So to me, it's first the soul setting, then the role setting, and then the goal setting. And since I realized that formula 30 years ago, I've shared it with tens of thousands of people, and everybody has said that it's changed the way they see life.
It's really you're helping people create a foundation or establish a foundation on which you can then build, and that's what you were saying with the inside job, right?
Yeah, it's all an inside job. It's funny, Robbie, when you mentioned earlier, one of the marketing modules in my training is called Tuning Fork Marketing. How to strike your chord. So if you strike your chord, whether it's life, business, relationships, communication, and you're genuine and true to yourself, and you're not worried about approval or being liked or looking good or, being accepted or getting the outcome you want or convincing somebody of something, you're just being you, right? You're just being who you are, then amazing things happen, because you tend to, as you strike that chord, just like a radio station, you dial in, everybody who's listening or resonating at that same frequency connects with you. And that's why I say the real interesting thing about business marketing and just about everything in life, like Emerson's quote, is we're seeking outside, I guess, cues, clues. You know, the whole success leaves clues things. That's true. But what you have to be able to do is discern which clues are for you and which ones will take you off your path. And so part of this whole process, at least the way I do it, is to help you trust yourself more, to trust your intuition. We have a tool that actually can measure. So when you think about mentoring, you like think about what is a mentor. You know, there's so many labels we use today that are kind of interchangeable: mentor, coach, Sherpa, advisor, whatever. And it's like you can get lost in the label. And you can also narrow things down to where you unfairly limit your ability to serve by the label you choose, right? So if you say life coach, it doesn't mean anything. You have to say what you actually help people do. So first thing is to say, what do I need? Forget the label. It's like, what do I really need? You know, and who is a good match for helping me? Do I need wisdom? Do I need experience? Do I need guidance? Do I need advice? Do I need skill building? Do I need tools? Do I need language? Do I need confidence? Do I need, as you said earlier, accountability? All these things are things that various people need at various stages of life. So when you get really good at self-assessment and assessing what you need, then it makes it easier for that match to find somebody. And very often I've been accused of this, and I've certainly fell into the trap of like, what do you need? What do you want? It's like, oh, I don't know. So part of it is helping people figure out what they need, what they want. So there's a lot to mentoring. But I think if I were to give somebody advice as to, you know, how to find a mentor, it starts with what is it that you're looking for and what do you need at this moment in time. So
that's a really important topic, which is really like the beginning point of entering the Find Your Mentor platform, which you can do in two ways. One is manually, where you're like, I just want to sign up as a finder and then manually search. But the thing is what you just said, you hit a really important nail on the head, because a lot of people just have a pinpoint or a pain point, or they have a block, but they don't understand where they are. They don't really understand what is it that I'm actually looking for? Where is my problem? I don't know. I just know something's not going right. And so I really believe that we can give the finders certain tools with which they can pre-assess certain things that, you know, with certain questionnaires really help them understand and take them by the hand. Where am I actually headed? What am I actually looking for? What area of my life is it that is in distress right now? And helping the process of the finder and the mentor before they actually come together, and just really fine-tuning that connection until we get the closest possible ideal match for both parties, and eliminating a lot of the processes. And I think the farther down we go down the road, the more refined this process will become, and also work with people like you who have a lot of experience and knowledge and know how to help the system or the platform ask the right questions, and figure out how to bring people together in a more efficient and productive, or also simple way. Because, you know, you were saying you like to make the process more simple, or not easier, but simplify the process, or
yeah, well, in a world that's so complex, everybody has complex problems, and a big part of mentoring is diagnosis. Like any good clinician, if you will, and I'm not suggesting that all mentors are clinicians, but essentially all mentors have their process. And in addition to the person has to be a match, their process has to be a match. So, if you feel you resonate with a person as a person, but the process doesn't work for you, then it may not be a real match. So there's more levels to matching. And also, you said something earlier, and so did Robert, about the questions. I live in the questions. So the way I see it, you can tell a good mentor, a big part of it is how well do they listen. And do they listen not just with their ears, but do they listen with their eyes, with their heart, with their soul? Do they listen for what's not said? And sometimes the answer is in the unsaid. It's what people don't say that clues you into, I see, where we need to go or not go. So it's much more important to have the questions, ask the right questions, than it is to have the answers. So I may or may not have an answer as a mentor, but I will keep asking the questions, because as a mentor, I can give you the fish, or as the old fable goes, I can help you learn to fish. And I think in today's world, you got to do both, because some people, they're just not ready to fish. And you could try to, come on. And eventually you say, okay, I'm going to give you the fish. All right. But I'm going to have to teach you how to fish, because I can't just give you the fish forever. I came up with that phrase 35 years ago because what I saw is 90% of the people who took training courses didn't do anything. It's just like, if I give you the fish, will you promise to learn how to fish? Because I can only give it to you. So sometimes you do have to give them the answer. And if you have it, and perspective, the last thing I'll say is, you mentioned perspective. And I think that's what mentors bring, is another perspective. And so part of your evaluation is this person able to give me a perspective, a view, a way of seeing or thinking that I can't, do myself. And so those are some of the things that I look to do with the people I work with, and what I look for in a mentor for myself.
And being emotionally detached, Mitch, is real important too when you're working with people. Because I get, you try to coach somebody you're in an intimate relationship with, and it's like, that goes nowhere, right? That's a big mistake to even try. It's easier when you get a counselor, you get an outside party to look in at the situation where they're not tied emotionally to it, and they don't have all these emotional hooks here and there, and they can see it just clearly. It's like, okay, you're doing this, this is what you need to do to move forward. And it's the same way in business. You and I have had experiences where we've worked with clients before who, for instance, might have a giant mailing list, and you say, well, why aren't you making any money off of it? Well, I don't know how to make money off of it. Okay, how many times have you mailed the list? Well, I haven't mailed the list. And you dig down, you go, well, why haven't you mailed the list, right? And you find out that they're afraid that people are going to get upset if they get an email from them, right? And they're sitting on a gold mine, literally millions of dollars in potential business that they don't do anything with. And it's not always the mechanics of it. It's all often the mindset that makes the biggest difference.
Oh, no question about it. We do some. I'm a kind of a master of something called axiology. Axiology is the science and study of human value, and it's actually the genesis of my soul role goal model. And in axiology, we talk about 3 dimensions, ways of thinking, like latitude, longitude, and altitude, sort of. Well, it's attention, what you look, where you look, bias, how you look, and then clarity, how much of what you look at do you see? So I can give you a 15-minute exercise that at the end of it, I have a computer algorithm that can print out and give me a 3-dimensional picture of your mind, how you think, not what you think. I don't know what you're thinking, but I know how you think. And I know what you pay attention to and what you don't. We know, you too, what bias you look at, whether a positive, negative, you look for what's there, what's missing, and then your level of clarity of thinking. So if you don't know where you're looking, you don't know what you're paying attention to because you're unconscious, okay? And I say, hey, move your head. Don't pay attention here. Look over there. And now I shift your attention. That can totally change your perspective of life just by shifting your attention. And then if I say, well, what's your bias? We all have bias. It's not a question of that I don't have bias. It's a question of knowing your bias. Do you look for the good in people? Do you look for the practical outcome? Do you respect order and systems and process and authority? All right. Or do you not pay attention to those things? That's your bias. And then clarity is how much of the playing field or the world outside of you do you actually see? And what we find is amazing. People have no idea what they pay attention to, what their bias is, or how much clarity they have. And they keep stepping in the same pothole over and over again until they realize, oh, there's another way to walk. And so knowing yourself, I think, is the greatest knowing of all. When you know yourself, you know what you pay attention to and don't, you know your biases, you know how much clarity of thinking, you now know what you lack and what you need to get support in, and it accelerates the process of personal, professional, and profitable growth immensely.
So that means you have a system or a test or a machine that can measure that?
Yes, I've run 1,000 of them over the past 30 years. And in 15 minutes, not only can we show you the dimensions, and we can actually print out an x-ray, not of your brain, but of how you think. We plot it on a diagram. But from that one diagram, that three-dimensional model, we can measure over 100 different skills and capacities in 30 different areas of your profession: sales, marketing, entrepreneurship, project management, personal development, and a whole host of other things, leadership, innovation. So I could take that one set of data that takes you 15 minutes to finish and produce as many as 30 different reports with more information about you than you can probably absorb, in a year from one 15-minute assessment. So that gives me an incredible advantage to be able to work with people, because now we both know, what they don't know, and we can accelerate their ability to focus on their strengths, not on their weaknesses, because if you strengthen your weaknesses, you will weaken your strengths.
Is this possible online, or do you have to have a person there physically?
No, I've never had in front. Everybody does it online. Reports get generated instantaneously. We choose from we use about 10 or 12 different reports for the different people in different places. But we have one known as a success DNA. It measures 9 categories and 46 capacities: empathy, practical judgment, discipline, self-starting ability. Get this, stress. Measures 7 levels of stress. The 3 levels of stress that are running at epidemic proportions: goal frustration, role frustration, and soul frustration. And one other page. One other page measures motivation. We measure 6 types of motivation. So we can tell you what motivates you, in what order, and in what intensity, and at the same time, what demotivates you. So if you have somebody you're working with and you're trying to motivate them with something that demotivates them, thinking it will motivate them, and not motivating them based on what motivates them, you've got a disconnect. Well, you can find that out in 15 minutes. So everybody I work with goes through this. Every company I work with goes through this. We've certified about 50 people around the world to be able to use this tool, and I've taught about 100 different organizations how to use it. We have the master licensing rights internationally for this.
How old does somebody have to be to do the test?
I'd say 16 or 17.
was-
We also have a youth test. We have another version of it for youth that might be as low as 13. So I was actually, about 20 years ago, I was on kind of a mission to create a youth profile. And we have one in mothballs, and I'm kind of ready to bring it out after all these years.
So down to 13, or is it even younger?
Probably 13, I would say, 13 and 14.
I'm just thinking about how amazing that would be in education for parents. I would love to have something like that I can figure out where the blind spots I have, for example, with my son, so that I can better motivate him. There are so few tools out there for parents and children to understand how do I better understand how I function and communicate that, but also in families, in businesses, in relationships. So valuable.
Unbelievable. How old is your son?
He's 12.
Okay. Might be a little young, but maybe not. We've had him with relationships, husband and wives, all kinds of business partners. To me, it's essential. Anybody you have a close relationship with should understand you, how you think, what you like, what you don't like. So it's been an incredible tool in our toolbox to help our clients in ways that you can't imagine. I mean, I still got people after years and years and years. In fact, I got a call this morning from somebody I haven't talked to in probably 12 years, and that topic came up. Hey, remember when we did the profile on this and that, and you told me this and that? And it's like, it was just like we did it yesterday, you know? So I don't know, in kind of conclusion, I'd say that, you know, what I'm all about is that living full out in the soul role goal of life and helping as many people as I can to actualize themselves as people, to maximize performance in whatever they do, and to generate a profit that makes it all worthwhile.
Wow, I'm so curious about that test. I want to.
I will gift it to you. How's that?
Well, these are the things that if more people would be able to learn about these things, if so many people don't know about them, it would make life so much easier. And as like moving forward, less friction, less frustration, less fights, less everything. So inherently, knowledge is power, which is in our logo, right?
Right. Well,
Yeah.
I just going to finish up because I know we're running here toward the end. Ralph Waldo Emerson, one of my favorite authors, you know, he has a great quote, and he talks about it. The great teacher, I'll also say the great mentor, is not the person who supplies the most facts, but the one in whose presence we become different people.
Oh,
That's what I aspire to in mentoring, is not so much facts and information and knowledge and, share experiences and wisdom, but to be present, to witness the transformation of a person literally becoming a different person. And that's what I see as the core, the essence. It's not really becoming a different person. It's really becoming more of who you already are.
that I am.
Speechless. Robert, is this the first time you've seen her speechless?
That's the first time I've seen her speechless. You've impacted her.
Well,
Yes,
thank you.
that's for sure.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Mitch, for
Mitch,
coming.
just give us a quick overview. The new game of selling / bonus has been on the screen on and off while you were speaking. Tell us what that's about. And then wrap up.
That's a quick 19-minute video for those of you who are self-employed or in business who need to attract, convert, keep customers. I show you the whole philosophy of the new game of selling, the new game of service, and something I call the buying cycle. And then at that page, you can actually fill out an intake form. I'll take a look at it, and I'll get back to you and give you a second opinion on your business or on your organization or on your practice, whatever it may be.
Outstanding. Thank you so much, Mitch. Really appreciate you being here today. Thank you for being part of our world, and you've been in the studio more times than we care to count. I know we're going to do some more stuff in February together, so lots coming. Lots of good stuff happening.
I'll see you next week.
Next week, yes, right. You'll be here for the tour,
Friday,
as it were. Yep, absolutely. Look forward to that. Yeah.
All right. Take care, Sophia. Nice to be with you.
Thank you, Mitch, for coming.
Thank you, Mitch.